you kind of segue right into the first thing I was going to talk about, which is it's been 5 years for MotoGP, 6 years for the fans in Bruno. We'll start with TJ, man. I mean, what do you think of the crowd being over? I think it was over 230 plus thousand people coming out for the weekend. I can't imagine, having a sport taken away, and motorcycle is huge over in Europe, being taken away for that many years. We're very fortunate over in the U.S. What are your thoughts about that MotoGP going back to Bruno?
No, I think it's awesome. I mean, when I first started watching MotoGP, I think they were at this track, and I like it, and it's a good layout. They call it the adrenaline track or something like that. And it's such a long layout, and to have that many fans there is pretty cool. Like when you look, you think there's like bleachers. It's just all grass. They're just sitting all on the grass. I mean, most tracks are like that, but you can't really even see the grass. Just all over the place. There are just fans everywhere. And I don't know who they really root for there. I'm not sure. Like there's a what is it in the Dutch?
They root for the European.
Yeah.
But it's good for that type of turnout, So I think it's good to have things like that. I wish we had that at Coda.
I think so. I think it's definitely dope to have the Czech Republic. When I was at Austin, I heard some of the media guys talking about how nice it was going to be when they got to Bruno. And it seems from the track being resurfaced and stuff like that, it's a pretty fast track. In some of the media questions they asked some of the guys, and this is to Cheetah, they were talking about how in F1 they have mandatory tracks, and they were asking what tracks should they make mandatory in MotoGP. And a lot of the guys say Bruno. So, we're all riders. But what are your thoughts of that being a mandatory track, and also just, the overall weekend and MotoGP going back there?
That's a cool thing. I didn't hear that question, but it's cool to have favorites like that as riders. We all want to go back to certain tracks because the racetrack is just suited for the riding style of everyone. It's just suited for these bikes. It's safer in some ways. You can get to go faster and feel sort of safer. Some tracks are very, very risky, and we still go back to those tracks even though the pavement's really bad. But that's interesting to say that. I'd be curious. I would also imagine that a lot of riders that said yes, they want to go back, make their favorite track, they have different reasons why, right? So maybe some win there more or whatever it may be. But it's a great track. I know we went back there a few years back. We used to have some really good battles. So it's really good to see. And the passing is interesting. You have to do it where it's always in the switchbacks. You always have to put it on the inside on somebody on the switchbacks. Pretty much all you can do for passing there, or on the braking zone on the first three corners, really. So I like it a lot. It's a fun track to watch.
Lewis, the numbers guy, I mean, what do you think? Do you think it was numbers why they weren't at Bruno for a little bit? Or I don't know if they were protesting wars that were close by. But,
it's the Czech Republic. I don't think they really have too many wars going on. No, I think, maybe this is a little inside baseball, but the previous owner of the track was Carl Abraham's father. And it's really interesting that they stopped going to the track right around the time Kyle Abraham stopped getting funding from his dad to keep racing in MotoGP.
Okay.
So I don't know if, maybe they had a little bit of falling out with the family because his son couldn't get a ride, or he didn't want to keep supporting his son's racing career because it wasn't really going anywhere. But I know that the new owner took over the track in 2023. And since then, they've been in negotiations to try to get MotoGP back on the schedule in Brno. So, I'm glad it's coming back, because obviously the attendance shows that, people do like to go watch MotoGP at that track. That track has been on the schedule for a long time. And it's a unique track because it's got a lot of elevation change. It's got fast sections. It's got flowy sections. It's got a lot of strange 90-degree, over 90-degree chicanes. So there's a little bit of everything. And I think that's one of the reasons we saw such an interesting mix of different manufacturers up towards the front, because it did lean on some of the strengths of the KTM, and it leaned on some of the strengths of the Aprilia. And that's why we see the mix, but it didn't lean on the strengths of like some of the other bikes. So you saw that, Yamaha struggled a little bit, Honda struggled a little bit, but the bikes with more horsepower, got a little bit better. So, again, this is one of those tracks that benefits some bikes, doesn't benefit other bikes. But it's a cool track. I've always enjoyed watching races to this track and seeing 220 people show up over the weekend. That's a massive number, man.
Yeah.
It's not something to blink your eye at.
No, it is, and I think it's I was thinking of the Ukraine war with Russia, and looking at the map, they're not that far apart. So that's what was in my mind somewhere. But let's jump into the weekend itself. Pecco had to go through Q1 and got pole position and so forth. I thought it was going to be a more competitive race for him. What did you guys think? Were you guys surprised that Pecco was able to, I'm probably not surprised at the part that he was in Q1, but got out of it and got pole position? We'll start with Troy. TJ.
Man, Pecco is not supposed to be in Q1. So, for him to even put himself through that when he already knows his struggles. It is rewarding to get pole. And, it is racing, but I think he only got pole just because, I forget the reason why, but something happened where he ended up actually getting pole. I think Marquez was actually on one of the fastest laps he was ever on, and then he crashed for 2 corners before the checkered flag.
Right. He said he saw Zarco crashed in the same corner before him, and he saw the dust, and that distracted him. And he was on a flyer. So yeah. Go ahead.
But no, I give it to him. I want to see him build his confidence. He is a really good rider. I know we've been getting on him all the time, all year. But I think he deserved the pole for sure. The sprint was a different story.
Got you. Cheetah, what do you think about it? Does Pecco use this as motivation because he seems to be sorting it out a little bit over the last 3 rounds. He even mentioned that in press conference as well. Granted, he 4th and 7th may not be the results you wanted this weekend. Is that motivation to say, hey, this is pretty good? Second half of the season is going to come up in about 3 weeks. I should be good probably 2 races after that.
I don't think so. Just knowing Pecco himself, I think Pecco has always been a slow starter. He's always been slow in the free practices, and then he sort of picks up in Q1, Q2, wherever he ends up. But even then, he's sometimes he'll get pole. But last year he was because it was a different scenario. But given that qualifying is a different tire. It's 1 lap. I think they all know that. Sure, they got the pole. It's a great accomplishment. It is a morale boost. But at the end of the day, it's the race distance that matters, right? So I think for that aspect, I don't know if he was really motivated because he got a few other poles right this year. And no, he didn't get any poles this year.
No, this is his first one. It's been the Marquez and Quadraro show.
Gotcha. Yeah. And so even still, it's not something that's applicable to the race distance, and that's where he struggles. He falls back more and more and more, 1 lap at a time at one point, it's just one after another. And so that's why I feel like he's still not feeling accomplished off a qualifying session. Just my opinion.
Gotcha. What are your thoughts, Lewis? I will throw this in, and you guys can jump in after Lewis talk about this. We talk about the sprint because the factory, they screwed up on the tire pressure, right? And it sounds like even in the main race itself, the bike just had way too much grip for that surface, or the surface just has so much grip that the bike had a lot of vibration. What are your thoughts on Pecco's pole position and also the struggles they had in the sprint?
He got a pole. He did 1 fast lap that got him the pole. But if you looked at what Zarco was doing on the lap he crashed and Mark was doing, they were about to clip his pole. They were on the last sector pretty much, and they were definitely going to take the pole. Either way, pole is pole. Whoever is there at the top when the checker flag waves, he's at the top, regardless of whatever else happens. But if you look at his inconsistency through the warm-ups and the fact that he had to go through Q1, he was already showing that he's having some struggles and some other issues. In the sprint, he's had a horrible sprints all season. So seeing him in 7th in the sprint wasn't a surprise because in a short distance race, for some reason, he just can't seem to put it together. I thought he would do a little bit better on Sunday, and he did better on Sunday. But again, he started having whatever issues he started having. But again, this is where a good rider and a great rider separate themselves. Marquez is having the same issues, but he finds way around the issues. And Pecco runs into these issues and succumbs to the issues. He doesn't find his way around the issues. Marquez jumped out front. He had a 3+ second lead. He saw the tire pressure was messed up. What did he do? He turned into a track day coach. He slowed down. He let the guys pass him. He followed him. He showed him the line. Then he tapped his head and bounced. And he still got another second and a half. Like, that's embarrassing, man. At that point, pack your shit up and go home. This dude is literally showing you he's faster than everybody else, has got more talent, and is just the best package. And that's the race that Pecco came in 7th. So Marquez having the same issue and wins, slows down, gives the grid a chance, and then still passes the grid to win. So again, Pecco needs to find a way to work himself around the problem while he's on the bike, not in the pit. Because he's obviously not finding the solution in the pit. So you got to find it out on the track. You got to find a way to change something about your riding style to help you overcome whatever obstacle you come across, man.
Right. But, I think in Pecco's case, we had some overzealous track day guys, just when he'd try to let one person pass, 3 people passed.
Hey, if you leave the door open, people are going to come in. It's called racing. It's going to happen. And when you see a wounded fish, do you go? It's like watching a wounded gazelle. Do you go against the really fast, in shape gazelle, or this wounded gazelle right here looks tasty? We're about to eat him up. That's what they're doing.
His crashing has been way down this year. I know past 2 seasons he's been always either first or on the podium or just throwing it away completely. He needs to get back to that. Even when there's times going out to practice, they wanted to follow him. Mark Marquez was always trying to follow him, pick on him, and he's just not been that guy. And like you said, he's just throwing all the excuses on the front end and trying to have it change in the paddock, and we just have to get that around the problem. Because he's not the only rider that's having issues. So everyone's running around an issue. So he needs to, he knows what he needs to do, but.
Right. You do make a. Yeah, you do make a good point that I think he doesn't want to crash. Where Marquez, he don't care if he crash. I think Pecco used to crash a lot, and I think this year maybe he's being too cautious because he's not sending it down the road. He'd rather not deal with the bumpy situation or the lack of feel. And granted, he's still pretty fast, right? But just I think that's the difference where Mark don't mind if he loses the front. He's trying to talk. He's trying to ride more like Pecco, and Pecco probably needs to ride more like how Marquez ride, where can't be. But it's tricky because you crash and you're out for the season. But I think you make a good point there.
I think one thing is it's about the rider and getting out of his head. What you just said is sort of something that can get up in their head, and they're scared of crashing. Right? Or they're scared of losing those points if they crash. Whatever it may be, he has to get out of his head because even the adjustments of Mark is just so quick and so fast. He's able to get back a spot and only a spot and not lose 2 spots. And whenever he snaps his fingers, he's back in front of the guy he wants to be in. The pace is obviously much, much faster than the guys around him. But Pecco, he turned it down a little, and then he turned it down a little too much. There's, a cost of everyone sneaking through. So it's about like being able to and then make that back up at the end of all that, because if that wasn't the case, would he have lost the pace anyways? If he was falling back the way he did, and he's such a late starter that he needs 15 laps to get going, then maybe this is a guy that's just not able to manage the bike well or the tires, or he just needs to get warmed up mentally in the race and lose that many spots for him to be like, all right, now I'm going to just say, forget not crashing, forget all that. Let me just push and go through. So does it take him that long to get out of his head? Who knows? Only he knows because he's in his head. So we can all guess, but I think we all know the man's in his head.
Right. You listen, no shade on Raul Fernandez, but he was dealing with that for a while too. And he seems to be figuring it out now because he had some really good results this past weekend as well.